A near-future action flick on Netflix based off a comic series? Ooh, I'm intrigued. Is the Netflix original film, The Last Days of American Crime, worth the 2.5-hour investment though? In a near-future setting, the US government develops a broadcast signal which prevents people from knowingly commit crimes. A thief partners with a gangster to pull off a heist that, if it is successful, will literally be the last American crime. Edgar Ramirez is Brick, and he's the thief who's going to be carrying out the crime. Now, he's not just in it for the money, he is out for some sort of revenge as well. Michael Pitt is our gangster, he's Kevin Cash, and he's got a lot of anger and daddy issues. And finally, we have Anna Brewster, who's Shelby. She is Kevin's fiancée, but she's also a computer genius, and she's necessary for them in order to pull off this heist. The signal element of this story is something you pretty much just have to accept and run with. In the movie, the signal is for the United States. But see, that's the problem with an audio signal. It just continues to go. It doesn't recognize borders. So, what happens when it reaches Canada and it goes, oh, wait, it's the land of maple syrup and very nice people who apologize for everything. I'm just going to stop here. No, it would continue to go. But even if you're willing to accept that part and you have to just run with that to be able to just kind of go with the premise of the movie, you also then have to accept that everybody's brain functions in the exact same way when committing a crime so that the frequency can disrupt that and prevent them from committing said crime. So I was willing to negate all logic in order to go with the premise of the film. Scenery in this is good, but it's also grim. It does a good job of painting a picture of a society on the brink of collapse, at least in certain areas. Because of this signal, law enforcement is pretty much going to become unnecessary. So as things wind down towards the deadline for this signal going live and all crime stopping, law enforcement officials, they just pretty much just kind of shut down. They just let things happen as they do. Ramirez's Brick is pretty stilted and stoic. I think he's trying to come across as hurt and damaged, but really he just comes across as robotic. Pitt, on the other hand, is quite animated and comically odd, and surprisingly, he's a bit of fun. Now, film quality in this is uneven. At times, it has a cinematic feel to it. A lot of the other times, though, it has that made-for-TV production value in it. The story is fairly straightforward, but unnecessarily complicated at times. Now, probably the thing that makes the least amount of sense in this is that once the signal goes live, the thieves, or any criminals for that matter, who have ill-gotten gains will not be able to use them once the signal has become activated because it is still committing a crime. They're knowingly using materials, funds, dollars, whatever this is that they got and they shouldn't have received because they didn't get them lawfully. And that's even acknowledged as the heist itself is underway. This is said out loud. This isn't something that we have to kind of deduce for ourselves. They spell that out for us. So if that's the case, why would alerts go out to all kinds of law enforcement when a heist is underway? Because the signal is about to go live and then it's just going to negate anything that they're doing. And even if they manage to pull off the heist before the signal happens, they're not going to spend it because it was ill-gotten gains and the signal is now pulsing through their head, preventing them from doing things wrong. There's one more complication to the story that really begins to feel like an afterthought. Sharlto Copley plays an unhappy cop. I say that with a question mark because he looks dissatisfied. He seems like he's not happy, but there's no context for it. But through all of this, he is the one to become the fly in the ointment. Maybe it's there for some added tension and conflict, but really it was just unnecessary. Now, the concept of this story is intriguing, but it's too drawn out. I'm not afraid of a long story. If the movie is engaging, I will gladly sit there for 4 hours and love every second of it. I love the extended versions of The Lord of the Rings, all 3 of them together, back to back to back. Golly, that's like 15 hours, and I'll sit there glued to my seat watching them, eyes kind of glazing over. But I also find it very hard to sit through a story that's really long when it could have been told in a much better fashion in much less time. There's also a commentary in this about government control, law enforcement morality, and personal rights. Some is subtle, some is more overt, but I'm glad that it's there because it keeps the story from being pointless. An interesting part I think they should have explored more is how law enforcement is able to get an implant which blocks the signal. So what that means is In a confrontation, the bad guys are not able to commit a crime, so they can't fight back, they can't shoot a cop, they can't do anything because that would be illegal and thus blocked by the signal. But because the cops have an implant back here and it's blocking the signal, there is absolutely nothing to prevent them from breaking the law. This plays out a bit like a cautionary tale for anyone or any government who is looking to try and set up some sort of utopia. There are always going to be those who are working to game the system for their benefit. Overall, this is a clunky movie that takes way too long to tell its story, but it has a good social commentary to it, even if it could be explored more. There's sex, nudity, profanity, and some brutal violence. I give The Last Days of American Crime 2.5 out of 5 couches. Do you have a favorite heist movie? Two of my favorites are Heist from David Mamet and, of course, the awesome Heat from Michael Mann. I would love to know what yours is in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.